Okay, so I mean, so it sounds like you were a person who knew pretty early on, this is what I want to do, this is where my interests are. So when you're 18, you already know that. Walk us through kind of how you knew that and then
Hmm.
what it looked like from there to get into it.
Yes, yes. So I will fully admit I was a nerd when I was a kid. I didn't get beat up or anything like that, so I at least had a personality, but I was a nerd. So I had two main interests and still do to this day when I was growing up. One, I loved meteorology. So I would wake up, there was a program. We lived by O'Hare Airport or in the vicinity when I was growing up, and there was this TV show on PBS called AM Weather that would come on at 6:15 in the morning and give the pilots the forecast and everything. And as a 5, 6, 7 year old, I was waking up at that time to watch that every single day. I
That's
have no
cool.
idea why it fascinated me, but just the weather has always fascinated me. So,
Hmm.
I'm still into it. I have a weather station and,
Hmm.
I've done storm spotting, stuff like that. So it's that always stuck with me.
Yeah.
But then I also grew up during the era of kind of the classic 80s sitcoms,
Hmm.
the comedies on TV that you watch on like NBC on Thursday nights or whatever.
Hmm.
And Family Ties was always one of my favorite shows.
Okay.
And that was about a family, and there was this character played by Michael J. Fox called Alex P. Keaton, and he was a big, like Reagan Republican, and really interested in the stock market, always talking about stocks and the market and everything. And at that point in my life, I'm 12, 13, and I was just fascinated by it. So, uh, being the nerd I am, again on PBS, believe it or not, kids actually used to watch this stuff. But there
Yes,
was
that's
another show on
great.
PBS called Nightly Business Report that would come on at 5:30. So I'm dead serious. I would come home from school, middle school or high school or whatever, come home 4:30, kind of wash up a little bit. Nightly Business Report would come on at like 5 or 5:30, I forget. And I would watch it. And, day after day, here's what the stock market did, here's what individual stocks had done. And that was super fascinating to me. And so by the time I went to college, I had these two interests and really wanted to, I actually went to college to pursue meteorology,
Okay.
believe it or not. So
Yeah.
finance was always a big interest, but meteorology was kind of my first love.
We're
But
gonna start getting weather reports from you. We're gonna maybe in our newsletter we'll start putting the quarterly weather report.
yeah, oh yeah, totally. I
It's
mean, like Tom
great.
Skilling, who just retired
Yeah.
recently
Yes.
from Channel 9, he was always the guy I wanted to be when I grew up and all that.
Yeah.
But one other aspect of me that people should know is I probably in my younger years underachieved what my potential was. So meaning I kind of took the path of least resistance. So when I went to school, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get into atmospheric sciences to become this meteorologist.
Mhm.
And right away, I realized I was going to have to take like three really hard semesters of calculus, three really hard semesters of physics, and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
And, I'm meeting all these new friends in the dorms and we're having fun and sleeping in till noon, stuff like that. And I quickly realized that if I wanted to pursue that career, I was going to have to sacrifice some social things.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so then I was like, okay, well, what can I do? And I'm like, well, I love stock market. I love stocks. I'll just go into business. That just
Hmm.
seemed a lot easier. You kind of look at, meteorology. I mean, you're making forecasts about the future. So you're
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
observable inputs, you're building models, you're making predictions about the future. It's the same thing in finance as well,
Yep.
in investing. When I got into my early career and all that, or my 20-year career of being an investment analyst, I mean, that's all it was. It was
Yeah.
looking at what's going on in the economy, look at what's going on with these companies, talking to managements, reading balance
Hmm.
sheets, coming up with forecasts for their earnings. And, in both those endeavors, I mean, what you quickly learn is no matter how much you think you know, and no matter how good you think your model is, it is really hard to predict what's going to happen more than 6 to 12 months in advance. I mean,
Yeah.
things always happen unexpectedly. And, It's just something you have to kind of learn to deal with when you're in this business because, again, I mean, the smartest people in the world have been doing this forever, and there's very, very, very few that get it right consistently.
Okay, so when you were thinking about getting into financial planning and you said you looked into it, did you talk to people? Did you look at the courses? How did you like what did you do to kind of see if that was something you thought you would like?
Yeah, so I had a couple of acquaintances who were
Okay.
financial advisors, so I would talk to them every now and then,
Hmm.
sparingly before I lost my job, a lot more aggressively after I did,
Yeah.
just to kind of see what it was like and, what are the roles and responsibilities. And I think the biggest thing for me at that point in my career was, as I mentioned before, I was kind of analyzing stocks and doing all this work, but I had zero connection with the end client. I mean, I would see like the big consultant and talk to them about what we're doing, but there were real people like mom and pop and workers and union retirees that were depending on these investments to pay
Yeah.
their benefits. And
Hmm.
I had no connection to that at all. So
Hmm.
what the probably the biggest thing that attracted me to make that career move was this idea and belief that, I'm going to be able to actually help people directly, sit in front of them, plan this stuff out, and help them achieve what they're trying to achieve. And, again, going back to kind of my childhood of, my mom's influence on me in terms of looking around and helping people, that's really where that came from, is just this desire to be like, you know what, I don't want to just work for myself. I want to work, for the benefit of my family, of course, but I also want to work for the benefit of others. And I just felt like at that point I had the experience to do that on a credible basis. And so yeah, so that was kind of the impetus.
Yeah. No, I think it's really great when you can take your strengths and in different areas. And that's what's great, I think, about financial planning is it's kind of the numbers, that technical part, but also marrying it with kind of people and emotions. And okay, I know what the numbers say, but is that what I want to follow? And so I think it's really cool, as you shared, you're really kind of taking what you learned early on as a kid, some of the things that you saw, and you're doing those. You kind of put them together. And we don't, kind of really think, how did I get where I am today? If I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And